Hey, welcome in. Let's gently step into a slow story from Valhalla. The night settles gently over Midgard, not with silence, but with a low, breathing stillness, the kind that arrives only after the day has spent itself completely. Fires burn lower in hearths. Winds move more slowly through grass and pine. Even the stars seem to pause, suspended above the world like watchful eyes that have seen this ending countless times before. Somewhere on that vast, sleeping land, a life reaches its final breath. It may be on a battlefield, where the ground is still warm from the friction of bodies and steel. Or it may be at the edge of a shield wall, where the roar of combat has faded into ringing ears and a narrowing tunnel of vision. The setting matters less than the moment itself, because in the Norse understanding of the world, death is not an interruption, it is a crossing. The warrior does not always recognize it at first. Pain recedes strangely, as though it has been wrapped in wool. The weight of armor loosens its grip. Sounds stretch and thin, pulled apart like threads. The sky above, whether clouded or clear, becomes impossibly wide. Breath leaves the body one final time, and with it goes the heat, the urgency, the struggle to remain. What remains is awareness. In Norse cosmology, Midgard is only one realm among many, bound together by the immense and ancient presence of Yggdrasil, the world tree whose roots and branches hold existence in place. Humans walk Midgard believing it to be solid and permanent, but the myths tell a quieter truth. All realms are layered, overlapping, separated by distance that is not measured in steps or miles, but in states of being. Death is the moment when those layers begin to separate. For most souls, the journey after death leads elsewhere, downward to hell's quiet domain, or outward into the unknown. But for those who fall in battle with weapon in hand, courage intact, and fate fulfilled, another path opens. It does not announce itself with thunder. Instead, the air changes. The fallen warrior senses a presence before it is seen. A shift in the space nearby, like the feeling of someone standing just behind you. The smell of blood and earth fades, replaced by something cleaner, colder, wind at high altitude, iron touched by frost. Then they arrive. The Valkyries do not descend in a blaze of light, despite what later stories sometimes suggest. In the oldest accounts, they are quieter, more severe. Choosers of the slain, witnesses, not mourners. They move through battlefields with practiced ease, stepping between bodies as though the chaos does not touch them. Their forms are human, yet unmistakably other. Armor fits them as though it grew there. Cloaks hang heavy and still, even when the wind moves around them. Their eyes reflect more than the scene before them. They carry memory, judgment, and the weight of long duty. Each Valkyrie serves Odin's will, selecting those whose deaths feed the future of the cosmos. The warrior feels no fear. Fear belongs to the living. Instead, there is a sense of being measured, not weighed for worth, but recognized. The battles fought, the oaths kept, the moment of death itself. All of it is seen at once, not reviewed, not judged aloud, simply known. A hand reaches out. When it is taken, the world releases its hold. Midgard falls away without collapsing. The battlefield remains behind, frozen in the moment after death, but the warrior no longer belongs to it. The ground does not pull. The sky no longer presses down. There is movement now, swift, effortless, carried not by feet but by intention. The journey upward does not pass through darkness. Instead, it moves through layers of thinning reality. The air grows sharper. Colors shift subtly, becoming cleaner, more defined. Distance loses meaning. Below, Midgard becomes smaller, less distinct, like a memory already beginning to fade at the edges. This ascent is not chaotic. It follows a structure as old as the worlds themselves. Above lies Asgard, the realm of the Aesir, set apart not by arrogance but by responsibility. It is not heaven, not reward, but a place of preparation and watchfulness. And within Asgard stands Valhalla, the Hall of the Slain, waiting not as a final destination, but as a gathering place before the end of all things. The warrior senses it before seeing it. A pull, not forceful, not urgent, but steady, like the certainty of a road that has always existed, even before it was needed. The Valkyries guide without words, their presence enough to keep the path clear. Time behaves differently here. Moments stretch, then fold inward. The warrior is aware of having lived a full life, yet feels unburdened by its weight. Memories remain, but they no longer ache. Regret dulls into understanding. Triumph settles into quiet pride. Identity is still intact, but it is no longer fragile. This is not forgetting. It is release. As the journey continues, the vast structure of the cosmos becomes perceptible, not as a map, but as a sense of order, roots below, branches above, realms balanced precariously, all moving toward a fate that no god or mortal can escape. Even Odin cannot stop it. That knowledge hums beneath everything in Norse belief. Ragnarök waits. Valhalla exists because of that truth. The warrior begins to understand, dimly at first, that this path was never about rest. Honor in death is not an ending, it is an assignment. A place has been prepared not to shelter the dead, but to ready them. Ahead, the air brightens. Not with sunlight, but with something steadier, an even, firelit glow that does not flicker. The soundscape changes as well. Distant echoes emerge. Low voices, the clink of metal, the crackle of immense hearth fires. None of it is overwhelming. It feels structured, contained, purposeful. The Valkyries slow. What lies ahead is no longer a passage. It is an arrival. The warrior senses the threshold before crossing it. A moment of stillness settles in, not imposed, but natural. The last trace of Midgard loosens its grip. The body that once carried pain, hunger, and exhaustion is no longer relevant. What remains is the self, honed, intact, and unafraid. Beyond this point waits Valhalla, not as myth, not as metaphor, but as a living hall filled with the honored dead, standing vigilant beneath a roof of shields, preparing night after night for a dawn that will one day never come. And so the road from Midgard ends, not with silence, but with purpose. The threshold does not announce itself. There is no gate slamming shut behind the fallen warrior, no final glance backward demanded by ceremony. The transition from the road between worlds into Asgard happens with the same quiet certainty that carried the soul away from Midgard. One state gives way to another, not abruptly but cleanly, like stepping from shadow into a steadier light. The first sensation is space. Asgard does not press inward the way mortal places do. In Midgard, the world is full of edges, walls, horizons, limits imposed by stone and flesh. Here, distance stretches without becoming empty. The air feels expansive yet grounded, as though it knows exactly where it belongs. Sound arrives next. Not the clamor of battle or the hush of death, but a layered calm. Footsteps moving far away, voices carried on the wind without urgency, the faint resonance of something vast and ordered continuing its work uninterrupted. It is a realm in motion, but not in chaos. The warrior becomes aware of standing upright again. There is no pain in this posture, no stiffness, no imbalance. The body, if it can still be called that, feels restored without feeling unfamiliar. Strength is present, but it does not demand attention. Breath comes easily, though it is no longer required in the way it once was. Ahead, the landscape opens. Asgard is not a single hall or city, but a realm composed with intention. Broad plains roll outward beneath a sky that never feels oppressive. Structures rise in the distance, halls, strongholds, watch points, each distinct, each serving a purpose tied to the maintenance of cosmic order. The ground beneath the warrior's feet is firm, unmarred by decay. No rot works its way upward here. No weeds fight for space. Everything appears maintained, not by labor alone, but by alignment with the realm's function. This is a place that exists to endure. The Valkyries guide the way forward, their pace unhurried. They do not need to rush. Nothing in Asgard operates on borrowed time, though everyone here understands that time itself has an ending. Far ahead, something luminous begins to take shape. At first, it appears as a thin arc against the sky, subtle, almost mistaken for a trick of light. As the warrior moves closer, the arc widens, its colors sharpening without becoming harsh. This is Bifrost, the great bridge between realms. It does not blaze. Instead, it glows with restraint. Bifrost is not merely a bridge, but a boundary given form. It spans not just distance, but difference. It connects Midgard and Asgard while ensuring they remain distinct, filtering passage rather than granting it freely. The surface of the bridge shimmers beneath the warrior's gaze, not unstable, but alive with contained energy. Each step across it carries a subtle awareness of transition, a reminder that movement between realms is never casual. At the bridge's watch stands Heimdall. He does not speak as the warrior approaches. His presence alone defines the space. Eyes that miss nothing, ears attuned to the smallest disturbance across the worlds. Heimdall is vigilance embodied, a guardian whose patience has outlasted generations of gods and mortals alike. The warrior senses no judgment from him. Recognition, yes. Confirmation. Passage acknowledged, not debated. Once across Bifrost, Asgard opens fully. The realm reveals its scale not through overwhelming size, but through proportion. Everything is balanced. Wide spaces set against solid structures, open sky paired with rooted stone. Nothing feels accidental. This is a place shaped by necessity rather than comfort. The night here is unlike any night known in Midgard. Stars are present, but they do not flicker. They hold their positions with quiet resolve. Light does not fade entirely, nor does darkness dominate. Instead, the realm settles into a deep, even twilight, a state suited to watchfulness rather than sleep. As the warrior continues forward, Valhalla begins to make itself known. It does not dominate the skyline through height alone. Its presence is felt through gravity, a sense that movement naturally orients toward it. Other halls exist in Asgard, great and storied, but Valhalla carries a different weight. This is where purpose gathers. The air grows warmer as the warrior draws closer, touched by the steady burn of immense hearth fires. Sounds become clearer now, voices overlapping in calm conversation, the low resonance of laughter that carries neither bitterness nor excess, the faint clang of metal set aside rather than raised in anger. No guards bar the way. No walls stand in defiance. Valhalla does not need protection from those it welcomes. The approach to the hall allows time for understanding to settle. This place is not a reward granted arbitrarily. It is a role assigned in recognition of how a life ended, not how comfortably it was lived. The warrior senses others nearby, new arrivals, guided along their own paths, each carrying the quiet weight of recent death and imminent belonging. There is no competition here, no hierarchy enforced through threat. All who arrive have already paid the cost of entry. The Valkyries slow once more. Ahead, the hall's outer structure comes into view, massive without being oppressive. Shields line its roof, layered and interlocked, catching the firelight and returning it in muted reflections. Spears rise as beams, their points angled upward, as though even the architecture remembers battle. This is Valhalla at night. Not roaring, not dormant. Alive, attentive, and waiting. The warrior reaches the edge of the hall's domain, feeling the last traces of transition fall away. Midgard is no longer close enough to remember vividly. Asgard has fully taken hold. What comes next is not arrival alone. It is induction. The road has ended. The bridge has been crossed. And now, beneath the eternal twilight of Asgard, the night in Valhalla is about to begin. Valhalla does not overwhelm all at once. Its presence unfolds gradually, allowing the mind to adjust before the full weight of it settles in. From a distance, the hall appears immense, but restrained, grounded in purpose rather than spectacle. As the warrior draws closer, details emerge one by one, each revealing a layer of meaning shaped by long tradition. The structure is vast, stretching outward rather than upward, its length far greater than its height. It feels built to contain multitudes without crowding them, to gather strength without compressing it. The walls are thick, fashioned from timber and stone so old they no longer announce their age. They simply endure. Above, the roof catches the eye. It is formed from shields, thousands of them, laid edge to edge, overlapping like scales. Each bears marks of use, dents, scratches, faint scars left by blades that once struck with intent. These are not decorative pieces crafted for ceremony. They are tools that have fulfilled their purpose and been elevated into permanence. Between the shields, light from within the hall escapes in narrow seams, a steady amber glow that softens the severity of the materials. At night, this light does not blaze outward. It rests, contained, like a great fire banked rather than stoked. Supporting the roof are beams made from spears. They rise at measured angles, their shafts darkened by age, their points turned upward. There is no sense of threat in them now. Instead, they hold the structure aloft with quiet discipline, a reminder that weapons, when no longer wielded, can still serve. The entrances to Valhalla are numerous. They are wide and tall, built to admit many at once without haste or confusion. The count of these doors is spoken of often in the myths, but standing before them, the number feels less important than the intention behind it. This is a hall designed for arrival on a grand scale, for moments when multitudes will be called forward together. Yet tonight, the doors stand open without urgency. Inside, the hall breathes. The floor stretches farther than expected, broad planks worn smooth by countless footsteps. It does not echo sharply underfoot. Sound here is absorbed, softened, shaped by the mass of the space itself. The ceiling rises high above, but never feels distant. Everything is proportioned for gathering. Long tables run the length of the hall, arranged with careful spacing. Benches line either side, sturdy and unadorned. There is no ornamentation meant to impress. The craftsmanship lies in durability, not embellishment. At the center, hearth fires burn. Not a single flame, but many, spaced so that warmth reaches every corner without concentrating in one place. The fires do not roar. They burn steadily, fed by a fuel that never diminishes. Their light casts soft shadows that move slowly across shield and spear, animating the hall without unsettling it. The air carries the scent of wood smoke, metal, and something richer beneath it. Meat roasting, bread warming, mead poured and replenished. These smells do not clamor for attention. They linger, reassuring, grounding. The warrior senses others nearby. Einherjar occupy the benches and stand near the fires, some in conversation, others in quiet contemplation. They are not uniform. Armor varies in style and origin, reflecting lives lived across different regions and eras. Some wear mail worn thin by use. Others bear heavier protection shaped by later ages. Yet here, no one stands out as foreign. Death has leveled what life separated. Voices rise and fall in measured tones. There is laughter, but it is not raucous. There is discussion, but not argument. The hall holds sound the way it holds people, firmly, without letting it spill into disorder. No one rushes. Time in Valhalla does not press forward. The night unfolds at a deliberate pace, shaped by ritual rather than exhaustion. There is no need for sleep as mortals know it. Yet there is rest in this stillness, a release from the urgency that once governed every action. At intervals, movement draws the eye. Valkyries pass through the hall unhurried, carrying horns of mead or guiding new arrivals to open spaces. Their presence commands respect without demanding attention. They belong here as completely as the hall itself. The warrior becomes aware of orientation. Valhalla is not chaotic in its openness. There is an order to where things are placed, an unspoken understanding shared by all within it. The fires anchor the center. The tables define gathering. The far end of the hall remains quieter, reserved for observation rather than participation. There, elevated slightly, is Odin's seat. It does not dominate the hall through ornament. It stands apart through stillness. From that vantage, the Allfather observes without intruding, witnessing the rhythms of the hall as one might watch a tide, attentive, patient, calculating. Yet Odin is not the focus of this moment. Valhalla exists not to glorify him, but to fulfill a necessity that binds gods and mortals alike. This hall is a place of preparation, not indulgence. Every element within it reflects that truth. The warrior feels this understanding settle gradually. The feast, the warmth, the camaraderie, all of it serves a purpose beyond comfort. Each night spent here strengthens bonds, sharpens resolve, and reinforces the acceptance of what lies ahead. Ragnarök is never spoken of loudly. Its presence does not require constant reminder. It is woven into the design of the hall itself, into the choice of materials, the arrangement of space, the discipline of those who gather here night after night. The warrior finds a place among the benches. There is no ceremony marking the moment, no announcement. A simple gesture from a nearby Einherjar indicates an open seat. Shared understanding replaces formal welcome. As the warrior settles in, the hall continues its quiet motion. Meat is poured, fires crack softly. Stories drift from one end of the hall to the other, fragments of memory and reflection carried without urgency. The night deepens, not into darkness, but into fullness. Valhalla has been revealed, not as legend, but as a living hall, sustained by purpose, inhabited by those who no longer fear an ending, because they understand what follows. And the night continues. The Einherjar do not announce themselves. There is no roll call, no declaration of rank or origin as they gather within Valhalla. They are known not by titles, but by presence. Each carries the quiet gravity of a life concluded in motion, not retreat. Together, they form the living substance of the hall, its voices, its weight, its reason for existing at all. To understand Valhalla, one must understand the Einherjar. They are not simply warriors who died violently, nor are they chosen for skill alone. In Norse belief, selection is shaped by circumstance, courage, and fate intertwining at the moment of death. To fall in battle is necessary, but not sufficient by itself. The manner of facing that end matters. Fear does not disqualify. Hesitation does not disqualify. What matters is that the warrior met the moment without turning away from it. Across the benches and fires of Valhalla, this shared experience forms an unspoken bond. The Einherjar come from different ages, lands, and peoples, yet the instant that defines them is the same. The moment when survival ceased to be possible and resolve took its place. They arrive carrying memory. This is not a hall of forgetting. The Einherjar remember their lives clearly, the farms left behind, the kin buried before them, the battles won and lost. These memories do not torment them. They exist without the sharp edge of regret, softened by distance and understanding. Pain does not linger here. Wounds no longer ache. Limbs lost in life are restored. Strength returns not as it once was, but as it should have been. The body, shaped by the needs of Valhalla, reflects the warrior at their truest rather than their most damaged. Yet identity remains intact. A shield-bearer from a coastal village sits beside a mounted fighter from distant plains. Their equipment differs. Their speech patterns differ. Even their understanding of warfare carries distinct flavors shaped by terrain and tradition. None of this divides them. Death has stripped away the urgency of proving oneself. In Valhalla, no one needs to justify their presence. Selection itself is confirmation enough. The Einherjar speak of battle, but not obsessively. Stories surface naturally, accounts of narrow escapes, of decisions made in moments that could not be undone. These tales are shared not for glory, but for recognition. Each listener understands what it means to act when there is no time left to deliberate. Some speak quietly. Others laugh easily. Personality has not been erased by death. It has been clarified. There are those who were leaders in life, accustomed to command. In Valhalla, leadership emerges without force. Experience commands attention where it is relevant and recedes when it is not. No single voice dominates the hall. Hierarchy exists, but it is subtle. Respect is granted through action rather than assertion. The Einherjar measure one another by composure, by restraint, by how they carry themselves during both feast and silence. Bravado finds little purchase here. New arrivals often listen more than they speak. They observe the rhythms of the hall, learning without instruction how to belong. A nod from a neighboring warrior. Space made on a bench. A horn of mead offered without ceremony. These gestures communicate more effectively than formal welcome ever could. The Einherjar are not consumed by anticipation of Ragnarök. They know what awaits them. The myths make no effort to disguise the outcome. Many will fall again, this time without return. Yet this knowledge does not sour the atmosphere of the hall. Acceptance runs deeper than optimism. In Norse belief, courage is not rooted in hope for survival. It is rooted in the decision to stand regardless of outcome. The Einherjar embody this principle fully. Their purpose is not to win eternity, but to meet fate without flinching. This understanding frees them. Night in Valhalla becomes a time of equilibrium. The day will bring combat, training, and testing. Night allows the spirit to settle, to exist without immediate demand. This balance preserves the warriors far better than endless struggle would. The Einherjar do not dream. Or if they do, those dreams are not fragmented reflections of fear and desire. Rest here takes a different form, an alert calm, a readiness held without tension. The mind remains clear, unburdened by the exhaustion that once clouded it in life. Some warriors choose solitude during these hours. They stand near the edges of the hall, gazing into the steady firelight, or toward the high rafters where shields reflect faint glimmers. Others gather in small groups, voices low, recounting moments not as stories but as shared recognition. No one is alone unless they wish to be. The hall accommodates both communion and quiet equally. The Einherjar are aware of Odin's presence, though he does not intervene. His observation is constant but distant. He has chosen them, but he does not own them. Their loyalty is not enforced. It is given freely, rooted in understanding of shared necessity. To be Einherjar is not to be exalted above all others. It is to be assigned a role that demands composure beyond fear and endurance beyond death. The honor lies not in privilege, but in responsibility. As the night deepens, the Einherjar settle further into the hall's rhythm. The fires burn evenly. Mead continues to flow. Conversation ebbs and rises like a tide that never crashes. This is the heart of Valhalla. Not the walls, not the roof of shields, but the gathered presence of those who have already given everything once, and will do so again when the time comes. And for now, in this long and steady night, they wait together. As the night settles fully into Valhalla, the hall shifts almost imperceptibly. There is no signal to mark the beginning of the feast, no horn blown to command attention. Instead, the transition happens the way all things here do, through shared understanding. Conversation softens. Benches fill more evenly. The steady work of preparation gives way to gathering. Food appears without spectacle. Great platters are set upon the long tables, their weight solid and reassuring. Steam rises slowly, carrying scents that spread through the hall in gentle waves. The aroma is rich, but not cloying. It invites without demanding. At the heart of the feast is Sahidimnir. The boar is brought forth whole, its form familiar to all who sit beneath the shielded roof. This is no ordinary animal, nor is it treated as one. Each night, it is prepared and consumed. Each morning it is restored. Death touches it without claiming permanence, a cycle that mirrors the fate awaiting the warriors themselves. The meat is carved deliberately. There is no rush to serve first or claim the best portion. Each Einherjar receives sustenance in equal measure, reflecting the absence of scarcity in this place. Hunger exists only as memory here, a reminder of what once drove urgency in the living world. Bread accompanies the meat, warm and dense, broken rather than sliced. Its texture carries substance without heaviness. It fills without burdening, grounding the feast in something simple and familiar. Along the tables, horns are filled. The mead flows from Heidrun, the great goat who stands upon the roof of Valhalla, feeding on the leaves of the world tree. From her udder pours a mead that never runs dry, rich and golden, sustaining every soul in the hall without diminishing its source. The drink is not intoxicating in the mortal sense. It warms without dulling, it loosens without clouding, minds remain clear, present, capable of reflection rather than escape. The purpose of the feast is not forgetting, it is cohesion. As the Einherjar eat, the hall fills with low conversation. Stories surface naturally, drawn out by the rhythm of shared nourishment. No one demands attention. Accounts unfold as fragments, moments recalled, choices examined, outcomes accepted. There is no need to embellish. Each listener understands the weight behind the words. Laughter emerges, steady and genuine. It does not spike into excess. It rolls through the hall like a current, brief and welcome. Humor here often rests in recognition rather than surprise. A glance exchanged, a knowing pause. The shared understanding of how close things came to turning out differently. The fires reflect these movements. Light flickers gently across shield and spear, catching on polished metal and worn wood alike. Shadows shift without menace, reinforcing the sense that this night is contained, safe within its own boundaries. The Valkyries move among the tables. They refill horns, clear space, guide newcomers toward open seats. Their presence is efficient and calm. They do not hover, nor do they withdraw. They are integral to the function of the feast, maintaining flow without drawing focus. No one eats alone unless they choose to. Even those who prefer quiet find themselves included through proximity rather than insistence. A bench shared is enough. The act of eating alongside others communicates belonging without requiring conversation. This nightly ritual does more than sustain the Einherjar. It reinforces memory without allowing it to harden into longing. It affirms identity while dissolving isolation. Each night spent at these tables strengthens the bonds that will one day matter more than individual strength. Ragnarök is present even here. Not spoken aloud, but understood as the reason this hall exists at all. The feast is not indulgence, it is preparation. Shared meals foster trust. Trust fosters unity. Unity will be tested when the final battle arrives. As plates empty, they are not cleared hastily. The pace remains measured. Some linger, finishing their meads slowly. Others rise to stretch, to move closer to the fires, to listen rather than speak. There is no pressure to vacate or perform. The night belongs to the hall. Eventually, the sounds soften again. Conversation thins into quiet reflection. The last of the mead is poured, though the source remains inexhaustible. The feast does not end with finality. It simply dissolves back into the steady presence of Valhalla, leaving behind warmth, nourishment, and the subtle strengthening of resolve. Nightly feasts here are not rewards for past valor. They are the quiet work of forging a force that will one day stand together, not because it hopes to prevail, but because it understands why it must stand at all. And as the fires continue to burn low and even, the night in Valhalla deepens, sustained by shared sustenance and shared purpose. Odin does not command attention in Valhalla. His presence is constant, but it is not imposed. It settles into the hall the way night air settles across a landscape, quietly, thoroughly, without announcement. Those who gather beneath the shielded roof are always aware of him, even when they are not looking in his direction. At the far end of the hall, his seat remains slightly elevated. It is not a throne shaped to intimidate. It does not gleam with excess or demand the eye. Its distinction lies in its placement and stillness. From there, Odin can see the full length of Valhalla, every fire, every table, every movement of the Einherjar as they pass through their nightly rhythm. He rarely moves during these hours. When he does, it is unhurried. Each motion appears deliberate, as though guided by considerations far beyond the present moment. Odin's posture carries neither tension nor ease. It reflects vigilance sustained over ages. He does not feast. While horns are raised and bread is broken throughout the hall, Odin remains apart from the ritual. This separation is not disdain, it is necessity. The Allfather's role is not to indulge in what the Einherjar require. His task is to watch, to remember, and to prepare for what is coming. The ravens perch nearby. Hugin and Munin rest close to him, dark forms against the steady firelight. They are rarely still for long. One or the other will tilt its head, as though listening to something unheard by anyone else. Occasionally, a wing shifts, feathers brushing softly against one another. Through them, Odin receives news of the worlds. Thought and memory move constantly, crossing realms with the ease denied to mortals. Even here, in the relative calm of Valhalla's night, Odin is not removed from the wider cosmos. His awareness stretches outward, following the slow march of fate. The Einherjar do not approach him casually. Respect shapes the space around Odin more effectively than command ever could. When warriors do speak to him, it is with clarity and restraint. Questions are asked without expectation of reassurance. Answers, when given, are sparse. Odin does not explain fate. He understands it too well to pretend it can be softened. What he offers instead is acknowledgement, a confirmation that each warrior's presence here has meaning, even if that meaning does not guarantee survival. This honesty defines Odin's relationship with Valhalla. He does not promise victory. He does not suggest escape. He prepares. At times, his gaze moves slowly across the hall. It rests briefly on newly arrived warriors, measuring not strength, but composure. It lingers on conversations that reveal understanding rather than bravado. He notes how the Einherjar carry themselves in rest as carefully as he observes them in combat. The hall exists under his stewardship. Not ownership, not domination. Stewardship. Odin founded Valhalla not as a reward for loyalty, but as a response to inevitability. Ragnarök approaches regardless of divine preference. Valhalla exists because preparation is the only meaningful response to that certainty. Night offers Odin a different vantage. During the day, the Einherjar train and clash, testing one another in cycles of death and renewal. At night, their true nature becomes visible. Without immediate threat, character reveals itself more clearly: patience, discipline, reflection. These qualities matter as much as martial skill. Odin understands that the final battle will not be won through strength alone. It will require cohesion, resolve, and the ability to stand without illusion. From his seat, Odin observes without interference. He does not correct behavior unless it threatens the hall's balance. Conflict among the Einherjar is rare at night, and when it arises, it is subdued quickly, not through punishment, but through collective expectation. The warriors know what is required of them. Odin trusts that knowledge. His presence reinforces the hall's atmosphere rather than disrupting it. The Einherjar feel watched but not constrained, seen but not judged. This distinction matters. At intervals, Odin rises. When he walks the length of the hall, conversation softens without stopping entirely. His passing does not halt the night's rhythm. Instead, it folds him into it. A nod here, a brief exchange there, no speeches, no proclamations. He listens more than he speaks. This is the habit of one who has learned that words rarely alter fate, but understanding how others perceive it can shape preparation. As the night deepens, Odin returns to his seat. The fires burn low and steady. The hall settles further into quiet reflection. Hugin and Munin shift, restless even in rest. Odin remains awake. Sleep does not claim him here. It never has. His role does not allow for it. While the Einherjar find equilibrium in the night, Odin continues his watch, holding together knowledge, memory, and anticipation with practiced restraint. Valhalla endures beneath his gaze, not as paradise, but as a place of readiness, sustained by vigilance and shaped by a god who understands that knowing the end does not excuse abandoning preparation for it. And so, under Odin's quiet presence, the night in Valhalla continues, steady, watchful, and unresolved. The rhythm of Valhalla is built on contrast. Day and night are not opposites here, but complements, each giving meaning to the other. The Einherjar understand this instinctively. They do not question the cycle, nor do they attempt to soften it. It exists because it must. By day, the fields beyond the hall become places of movement and collision. At first light, the Einherjar gather without summons. Armor is donned. Weapons are taken up. There is no hesitation in this transition. Combat is not treated as spectacle or punishment. It is function. The clashes are swift and decisive. Steel meets steel. Shields shatter. Bodies fall. Death comes repeatedly, without ceremony and without fear. Each warrior fights with full commitment, knowing that the outcome does not remove them from the cycle. When the last blow lands, the fallen rise again. Wounds close, breath returns. The body restores itself not gradually but completely. Pain leaves no residue. Death teaches without lingering. This repetition refines skill. Every exchange sharpens timing. Every defeat reveals weakness. There is no room for illusion in this process. Strength that relies on chance erodes quickly. Discipline endures. Yet the Einherjar do not speak of the day's combat at length. Night is not for reliving violence. The purpose of training is fulfilled in the doing, not in the retelling. When evening settles across Asgard and the hall fills once more, the emphasis shifts. Night allows integration. Muscle memory settles into instinct. Lessons learned through impact find their place within understanding. The body no longer demands attention. The mind quiets. This transition is essential. Without rest, even the restored would fray. Valhalla's cycle preserves not just physical readiness, but psychological steadiness. The Einherjar learn to hold readiness without remaining perpetually braced for impact. Night in the hall is not inactivity. It is a different form of preparation, one rooted in reflection, connection, and equilibrium. Conversations drift toward meaning rather than mechanics. Warriors speak of why they fought, not how. Some sit alone, letting the quiet recalibrate them. Others gather in small clusters, exchanging insight without instruction. Knowledge circulates freely here, unguarded by ego. What one has learned through loss becomes shared understanding. This balance shapes the Einherjar into more than soldiers. They become a unified force capable of acting without chaos when the final moment arrives. Training teaches the body to move. Night teaches the mind to remain clear. The contrast also preserves humility. Victory in Valhalla's fields does not elevate status. Defeat does not diminish it. Each day resets the field. Each night restores perspective. This is why the hall remains calm. Violence does not spill into the hours of rest. Aggression has its place, and it is contained. The Einherjar do not carry the weight of the battlefield into the feast. They set it down willingly. Odin observes this rhythm closely. He understands that endless combat without pause would hollow even the strongest will. The cycle is designed not to exhaust but to sustain readiness across eternity. As the night deepens, the echoes of the day fade entirely. The clangor of weapons gives way to the steady breathing of the hall. Fires burn evenly. The Einherjars settle into stillness without losing alertness. This is not sleep. It is poised rest, a state in which the body remains capable and the mind remains unclouded. When dawn returns, transition will be effortless. Day will come again. Weapons will be raised. Death will be met without hesitation. And night will follow, returning the hall to quiet purpose once more. This rhythm does not weaken the Einherjar. It sustains them. And within that balance, between clash and calm, between action and reflection, the night in Valhalla finds its enduring strength. As the night stretches onward, Valhalla grows quieter, not empty, but attentive. The feast has softened into afterglow. Fires burn lower. Mead rests in horns left half full by choice rather than fatigue. Across the length of the hall, voices gather in smaller pockets, forming islands of conversation separated by comfortable silence. This is when stories surface. Not recitations meant to impress, nor boasts sharpened for admiration. What emerges here is subtler, shaped by reflection rather than performance. Beneath the roof of shields, the Einherjar speak as those who no longer need to prove anything. Stories in Valhalla are rarely linear. They arrive in fragments, moments remembered because they still carry weight, a decision made at the edge of fear, a hesitation that cost something irreversible. A choice whose consequences only became clear much later. No one interrupts. Listening is as valued as speaking. Each account is allowed to settle before another begins, giving space for recognition to pass silently among those nearby. Many have lived similar moments, though in different lands and times. One warrior recalls a stand made knowing it would fail. Another speaks of retreat, not as shame but as necessity, followed by a return that changed everything. These stories are not lessons delivered with intention. They become lessons through shared understanding. Failure is not hidden here. It is examined without cruelty. The Einherjar understand that perfection was never the standard. Resolve was. Some stories are brief. A single sentence offered and left hanging. A glance toward the fire. The unspoken acknowledgement that no more needs to be said. Others unfold slowly, shaped by pauses rather than detail, allowing meaning to rise naturally. The shields above reflect this exchange. Their worn surfaces catch the firelight and scatter it softly across the hall, as though echoing the layered memories being shared below. Each shield once belonged to a warrior who faced an ending. Now they form a collective shelter over those who will face one again. Stories cross boundaries of age and origin. A fighter from a coastal raid listens to one from an inland battlefield. A warrior who fell defending kin hears from one who died far from home. The distinctions matter less here. What connects them is the moment when choice overtook instinct. Silence holds equal value. Not every Einherjar speaks each night. Some listen for long stretches, absorbing the rhythm of shared experience. Others remain near the fires, letting the warmth carry thought without words. This quiet exchange strengthens the hall more effectively than any drill. Understanding deepens cohesion. Knowing how others faced their final moments prepares each warrior to face the future without illusion. There is no nostalgia here. The Einherjar do not long for the lives they left behind. Memory exists without longing. Loss is acknowledged without reopening wounds. Stories of home surface occasionally. A description of terrain, the way wind moved through a particular valley. The sound of water at night near a familiar shore. These details are offered without ache, preserved as part of identity rather than as something missed. The night accommodates all of it. Valhalla does not rush this process. Time stretches, allowing reflection to unfold fully before dissolving back into quiet presence. Odin listens from a distance. He does not intervene. These stories are not for him. They belong to the Einherjar alone, shaping bonds that no command could impose. As the hours deepen, conversation thins. Voices drop. Some fires are left to burn unattended, trusted to maintain themselves. The hall settles into a state that is neither active nor dormant. Stories conclude without closure. There is no final summation, no attempt to draw meaning too tightly. Each account leaves behind something intangible, a shared understanding that remains even after words fade. This is how the Einherjar prepare their spirits. Not through instruction, but through honest remembrance, offered without expectation. And beneath the shields that once bore the weight of battle, the night in Valhalla holds these stories gently, allowing them to strengthen resolve without stirring unrest. The hall grows still once more. The stories have done their work. Ragnarök is never announced in Valhalla. It does not arrive as prophecy spoken aloud, nor as warning repeated until it loses meaning. Its presence is quieter, woven into the structure of the hall and the rhythm of those who dwell within it. Every shield overhead, every spear beam holding the roof, every cycle of battle and restoration exists because the end is known. In Norse belief, fate is not a thing to be escaped. It is a current that carries gods and mortals alike toward an unavoidable conclusion. Even Odin, with all his knowledge, cannot divert it. He can only prepare. Valhalla exists for this reason. The Einherjar understand this truth without needing it explained. Ragnarök is not discussed as a distant possibility. It is treated as certainty, neither rushed toward nor denied. This certainty shapes behavior. There is no false optimism in the hall. No belief that preparation will somehow cancel the end. The purpose of readiness is not survival, but stance. When Ragnarök comes, the Einherjar will stand. That is the measure of success. Night in Valhalla reflects this acceptance. Calm here is not ignorance. It is composure born of clarity. The warriors do not spend their nights imagining the final battle in vivid detail. They do not speculate about outcomes. They do not seek reassurance. They have already accepted what lies ahead. This acceptance frees them from distraction. Instead of fear, there is focus. Instead of anxiety, there is steadiness. The Einherjar invest their energy in becoming capable of meeting the moment when it arrives, however it unfolds. The myths describe Ragnarök with stark simplicity. The breaking of bonds, the rising of long-contained forces, the collapse of structures that once seemed permanent. Gods will fall, worlds will burn, nothing escapes the scope of the ending. Valhalla prepares for participation, not preservation. The Einherjar will march alongside the Aesir, knowing that many will fall without return. There is no promise of renewal for them beyond that moment. The cycle that restores them daily will end. This knowledge does not drain meaning from the present. It intensifies it. Night after night, the hall reinforces a single principle. Courage is not measured by hope of reward, but by willingness to act in full awareness of consequence. This belief permeates Valhalla's atmosphere. It is why the hall does not indulge excess, why discipline governs both feast and rest, why stories focus on decisions rather than victories. Everything here points forward, yet the future does not overshadow the present. Night remains a time of equilibrium, not anticipation. The Einherjar do not pace the hall imagining the final clash. They remain where they are, grounded in the work of becoming ready. Odin's vigilance reflects this stance. He does not attempt to rewrite fate during these hours. He observes, gathers knowledge, and ensures that the hall functions as intended. His presence reinforces acceptance without resignation. Ragnarök does not diminish Valhalla. It gives it meaning. Without the end, the hall would be unnecessary. With it, every night spent here carries weight. The Einherjar understand that when Ragnarök arrives, there will be no pause to gather courage. What exists then must already be present. Night in Valhalla is where that readiness is forged, not through fear, but through clarity. As the hall settles deeper into stillness, the weight of inevitability rests gently rather than heavily. It is held collectively, distributed among many shoulders that have already learned how to bear it. The end waits, not as threat, but as destination. And until that moment arrives, Valhalla continues its quiet work beneath the shields, shaping those who will meet fate without illusion. The night endures. The night in Valhalla does not conclude. It softens. There is no signal to mark its passing, no boundary where one state ends and another begins. Instead, the hall eases into a deeper stillness, as though the weight of shared understanding has settled fully into place. The fires burn lower now, but they do not dim. Their light remains even, steady, sufficient. Shadows stretch longer across the floor, not in threat, but in quiet affirmation that time here flows without urgency. The Einherjar remain present. Some sit in silence, resting in awareness rather than sleep. Others stand near the edges of the hall, gazing upward at the roof of shields that arches overhead like a remembered sky. No one is compelled to move. No one is compelled to speak. This is rest, as Valhalla understands it. Not withdrawal, not escape, but equilibrium. The body, restored again and again by the hall's cycle, requires nothing further. The mind, cleared of fear and excess, holds readiness without strain. Together, they remain aligned with purpose. The hall itself seems to breathe. Wood settles. Fire shifts softly. The immense structure holds its gathered presence without effort, as though it were shaped specifically for this state of quiet endurance. Above, the shields reflect faint glimmers of firelight. Each bears the mark of a moment when it stood between a warrior and an ending that could not be avoided. Now, together they form a ceiling strong enough to shelter those who will face another ending still to come. Odin remains watchful. He does not close his eyes. He does not retreat from his post. The night offers him no rest, only clarity. His awareness moves steadily across the hall and beyond it, tracking the slow convergence of fate. Hugin and Munin shift nearby, restless even in calm. Thought and memory do not sleep, nor does purpose. Valhalla exists in this sustained state, not as paradise, but as preparation refined to its purest form. Nothing here distracts from what matters. Nothing here pretends that the end can be avoided. The Einherjar do not count nights. There is no tally of how long they have waited, no speculation about how much time remains. The cycle does not demand measurement, it only requires presence. This is why the night feels endless. Not because it lacks dawn, but because it is complete within itself. Eventually, the light will shift. The hall will transition seamlessly back into motion. Weapons will be taken up. Fields will echo once more with the sound of combat. Death will be met and released again, without fear. But that moment is not now. Now belongs to stillness, to the quiet strength of those who understand their role and accept it fully. As the night holds, the hall remains what it has always been, a place where readiness is preserved without urgency, where courage rests without dulling, where fate is faced without illusion. And so the night in Valhalla continues, unbroken, unhurried, waiting. If you've found calm in this journey, consider supporting the channel by liking the video and subscribing. It helps these long-form stories continue. For now, remain where you are. Let the hall hold its silence, and allow the night to carry on.